Okay. Well, I need to share how I came across your music and your work. It was on Insight Timer, and as I shared with you in the email, I was looking for something to meditate with, and I found this really beautiful drumming, shamanic drumming sound, and it quite literally took me on a journey. Without any medicine, I was in a medicine space, just meditating, and I enjoyed it so much that I was like, I need to email this guy. Who is this guy? Okay, Matthew. Okay, Matthew, we are emailing you. And so here you are.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah, likewise. And I was really excited to receive your email. And it always inspires me when I get emails and messages from people like yourself saying how I heard this song of yours and it took me on this journey or it took me into this healing space. And it's just a great encouragement for me because that's a lot of the reason why I create the music I do is for my own healing and my own journeying in that way. And it's always so rewarding to have others say, oh, that moved me in this way as well.
Yeah. How did you get started in music?
Well, believe it or not, I didn't even know I had any musical ability until the age of 19. My younger brother, Brenton, he asked for a guitar for Christmas. And just watching him play it, it kind of awoke this desire and curiosity in me. And so when he wasn't playing, I'd say, hey, do you mind if I give that a try? And it turned out I had a natural ear for music. And so I think one of the first songs I figured out by ear was Stairway to Heaven. And it was just this like real strong connection with the guitar, as you see, I have some around me here. And so for the last 20 some years, I've just been evolving that journey of exploring music, exploring songwriting in my voice, and collecting other instruments and exploring other production styles along the way.
So you have no classical training. Like you didn't go to school for music. You just followed your passion.
Yeah, actually, I remember in my 20s, I grew up near Cleveland, Ohio, and we have a city nearby, Oberlin, that has an Oberlin Conservatory of Music. And I thought, maybe I can go study music. And so I went to an audition and I brought a bunch of songs that I had prepared and some different things. And I remember the instructor, when he was done, he kind of let me know that this might not be the best program for a person like me, but he goes, have you ever considered being a songwriter? And so at the time, I kind of took it, not like defeat, but I was like, oh, I was looking forward to maybe the prospects. But looking back, I feel like that was a great observation because it kind of planted that seed in me that that's more true to me is to be the storyteller, songwriter, and take people on that journey through music.
Yeah. I am a classically trained musician, and I can tell you it's probably better that that happened because you were, instead of being drilled like this is the way and this is how you should do it, given a formula, you were able to probably find your own, and that served you.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Remind me, what music instruments do you play?
I
Or are you
mean, throughout the
trained
years,
in?
it's
Yeah.
so voice is my main instrument, but I've played viola, violin, cello, steel drums, marimba. I think that's it.
And I'll echo what you said. I've played with some people who come from a classical background, and I found they were very technically proficient and amazing. But when it came to moments of improv, sometimes they'd almost have like, don't know what to do. And I always thought that was really curious. I was like, oh, in my mind, I think study music, you know everything. But it's interesting how that works in the human element of expressing ourselves without the rules, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, and many times without the rules is scary. And then it's like, "Oh, it's just me. Well, what do I sound like? What does my expression look like?" And it's hard to find that when you've been given these set of structures along the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you start? When did you start songwriting?
Well, so sometime after I in early days when I was learning the guitar, I started off with cover songs and just, getting familiar with what I could do with music. So sometime around then, I started getting the interest to play music with other musicians. So I started auditioning for bands, and it was kind of in that process of learning to find my voice as well, being the front man for a band and playing and singing guitar. And so we were involved in that songwriting process. But I think it was about 4 years later, I actually wrote my own original album. It was called The Introspective Year. And it came out of a very actually dark period of my life. I had just gone through the ending of a relationship, and I had a lot of just that heartbreak feeling inside. And I remember just laying on the couch in my brother's basement where I lived for like weeks, just kind of in this lamenting and almost like suicidal type thoughts of being so dark and heavy. And what finally got me out of that space was the realization that I had a lot of feeling in me. And the most natural inclination was to pick up my pen and start writing what became lyrics. And those lyrics became the fodder for the songs. And so all that pain was the catalyst for the transformation of my emotions into my first album. And so that was a real powerful experience for me, because it kind of was my healing process when I wrote the album. And so that was how it all began.
That's my favorite part of the pain, the beauty that we can create from it if we choose to.
Yeah.
So I don't know if...
I was just going to add, that's what I always thought was remarkable about the word 𝗕𝗧𝗏, is there's art hiding in the middle. So it's almost like what a great key we have when we can express ourselves. It becomes this beauty from pain.
Yes. It makes me think of, Adele, the singer. Who doesn't know Adele, right? So her album 21, she was going through a breakup also. And then I think the following, she was happy. And people were like, somebody needs to break her heart again. Because, the darkness and the pain, it just creates this power in music sometimes. Now that you're into a lot of healing music, how do you view making music from a place of pain versus making music from a place of joy? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, most of my approach to any kind of expression or art is very intuitive and very felt. And ironically, growing up, I was very shy and sensitive, and I kept a lot of my feelings inside. So that first album was really that kind of breakthrough moment. But since then, I've kind of learned to honor this instinct to create. And same with me, my preferred instrument is my voice. And so a lot of my healing has come through just making sounds. And over years, I learned that, it doesn't have to be like a healing process and a painful transformation. It can be joyful sounds, and it can be, whatever the emotion is, or in the moment, excitement. And I've kind of come to create my own routine, typically in the mornings when I get done meditating. When you're in that stillness for sometimes, you'll kind of feel the body want to start to move and awaken. And I'll find naturally that a sound will want to come through me. So over the years, I've learned to just like honor that process, like the feelings and the sound were guiding me. And a lot of times a song will just be born from a meditation session where I'll make a sound like, and just kind of following what wants to come through me. There might be a melody or a rhythm, and then I'll say, oh man, something's happening. And I'll get over to my recording equipment and I'll start capturing it. And next thing you know, it's inspired this sequence of ideas that just flow through me. And so it's really, like I had said, a very intuitive and felt process.
Wow. It's a beautiful process.
Yeah.
Very inspiring.
Yeah, thank you. It's one I've learned to honor, and kind of like you said earlier, like, what about my voice and how do I find my voice? And is kind of that question. So is my voice good, or it's like that question of self-worth and value, right? And so a lot of my finding my voice was during those little moments of just like with self, when you're with yourself and you give yourself the permission to make a sound and try to learn to turn off that judge inside that's judging it like it's sharp or flat or good or bad. And you just allow the sound to be evoked and flow through you. And that is where that nourishing quality comes through.
And it feels so good, right? When you just allow it and you're able to fully express it without holding anything back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It feels like true freedom. And in those moments, then we get all sorts of inspirations and downloads, like they say, see visions of myself in a future place on a stage or at a retreat, or offering this as a medicine or as a teaching, or just, like a song that wants to come through. So it's kind of like what I've felt is my subjective experience could potentially be an objective experience for all people to explore the voice as a healing tool and also as a tool of self-expression in multiple mediums.
How did you get into the voice activation part of it, and what's some of what you do there?
Well, voice activation, in a way, it could be very similar to the journey that we just described. And I'll go back in time. So around 2015, I got a Kundalini Yoga teacher certification. And that, again, was a lot of training and teaching, but very regimented. And we learned mantras that were in specific rhythms and things like that. So it's a great addition to a tool in my tool belt to have with me. But after the training, I went on a West Coast road trip. I visited my brother in California and found myself at a cabin in Santa Cruz, California, that I rented from some musicians who were going on a road trip and wanted someone to just rent out their space while they were gone. So for 2 weeks, I was in this cabin and I fasted for the first 4 days. And I allowed myself to kind of go into that inner questioning of like, what's my purpose? What am I here for? What's my gift? What do I want to do with my life? And that's where I came to the idea of AudioSoul Healing. It really summed up my path that I wanted to use music and sound to help with this deep healing, this what I call soul healing, beyond just in our human form, but almost into a multi-dimensional experience. And I believe my initial catchphrase or mantra was transmitting sacred sound for the upliftment of planetary consciousness. And that was kind of like my guiding stars, if you would say, of why am I doing this? What's the point? What's the purpose? It's all coming back to that this medicine is not only just for me, but it can be for others too. And maybe this greater vision that when we are in our full expression and we're fully emanating from our heart and soul, that it changes the environment and the space around us and the people around us. Or perhaps in a more sonic term, it's a way to align energy and frequencies, and we can give others permission to express so freely. We can potentially act in energetic ways to create community or to, who knows, maybe these are ways that indigenous and past cultures use sound and frequency for all sorts of different healing or nature-related activities. So I'm not sure if I exactly answered your question, but that's where it guided me.
Yeah, you took me to the beginnings of it. The vocal activation part, though, I wanted to know how that worked. But touching on what you just said with, allowing the space for people to show up, however, and thinking of these indigenous sounds, I'm wondering how you're able to teach that in a way that moves beyond that's weird, because it's not what we experience in everyday life or mainstream society, because a lot of times we have things that want to come out, but because we have never seen an example of that before, but going back to, that's weird. Like, how do you address that?
Yeah, that's a great topic that is experienced, not only that I've experienced, but others experience at some of my workshops, where you can see that hesitation and like, I don't know if I'm ready for this kind of energy at times, whereas others are ready to dive right in. And what I think it goes back to, again, we kind of have been touching on it, is that this is a safe space, and we're giving, as an instructor and demonstrator, giving permission. And maybe this is the first time some people have ever seen someone in person be free with their voice or free with their movement or emotion. I know growing up, like my family, I came from a great family, but we weren't really emotional. So I didn't see a lot of displays of emotion outwardly. It only came from watching, movies and things on a screen. But there is something that happens when we're in a space experiencing raw emotions from others. And so it's that component of giving permission for others to make sound, exploring the discussion, like we said, that what does it mean to be non-judging in our expression and in our sounds, and just be more curious and allow the sounds to come through. And then third, also give some gentle guidance of what could happen. So talking about a voice activation, what could happen? I went to a training in Spain at a holistic voice therapy, and there they gave us this wonderful tool of kind of like speaking almost in like a light language or gibberish, where you're just, you might not know exactly what you want to say in words, or you don't know how to put it in words, but you're allowing yourself to just get started and you're just letting this kind of sound come through you. And then you can give prompts to that. In the expression of the gibberish, there's this ability to have an intention, of course. And some of the prompts that we were given is, imagine there's something that you need to say to your father, or a hard conversation you have with your mother, or maybe those people aren't alive anymore, someone that has passed, and you want to have a conversation with them. What would you talk about? And it's kind of, again, that moment of vulnerability where maybe you aren't able to put it into words exactly, or if there's a group present with you, you might not be ready for that level of vulnerability. But in the gibberish, you can kind of just express the feeling through the sounds. That is a component of, like we said earlier, like that could even feel a little weird, but I think it again gives people like this other dimension of how to use this practically when it comes to a voice activation in a way that they could relate. Oh, I can actually express my feelings and say what I have to say, but it can be just for me. It doesn't have to be broadcast like I'm a performer or something like that.
Exactly. That sounds like it would have been a really interesting class or course to take. Workshop. What was it, a workshop?
It was a several-week certification in Spain by a group called Harmonic Sounds, and they actually have built their own dome on their property, like a sound dome.
Oh, wow.
So maybe about 12 or 15 participants were all there every day in a circle for several weeks, and just exploring multiple facets of sound, the voice, and using it for healing and therapeutic properties.
You know what I really love, and maybe since you've studied this a lot, maybe you know what it is. I don't know. Maybe it's nothing, but I love being able to make sounds. Just, I'll just be like, ooh, and then I'll just go up and down until I find that note where the vibration just goes like that. You know what I mean? It's not like the straight note, but the vibration moves more. And I love just laying on that note and feeling that vibration in my body. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, the camera was cutting up a little bit, but I think I got what you were saying. And my understanding of it is almost like resonance, because we can have, regular singing, we can have vibrato, but in there, this is where like throat singing is an interesting exploration, where if you've ever tried throat singing, there's a moment where it just locks in and there's this fullness to the sound. And it's also like with our voice. And I like to use when I'm teaching too, how vowel sounds are a great exploration. We could even try it now with like the sound ah. And so if we just hold out the sound in its normal sense, like a breath, but then you can sculpt that same tone, that same pitch, and you can start expressing it and maybe find like you're describing like a resonance where it feels more full. So it could be like and just very subtly, I can sense it inside of myself, where it's like, I believe they call it harmonics. There's a little bit more harmonic content, and it creates like this inner vibrating where your chest, your vocal expression centers and head and chest and throat are all resonating and vibrating. And yeah, it's a wonderful feeling. Same with like you said, sometimes I'll just find myself, I want to stay in that space for a long time and hold the note as long as I can, or have fun with it, play with it.
Yeah, it's really nice. Just harmony in general, singing with other people when you can, find those tones that just click, feels like it is like what you were saying before, the gibberish. It's another way to communicate, and communicating without words that can be different. I want to say more powerful, but different, because you're able to say things that you can't say with words, but you feel it, whatever other ways that we don't know of, whatever layers of our senses that we haven't discovered yet. Things are happening in the body and in the mind and in the energy field.
Yeah, it's a great reminder that, singing on your own is one experience, but with others, you get that feedback. And as well, it can inspire the journey that everyone is going on. You could raise your voice a little, that could inspire the group to lift up, or you could kind of pull back and, like you said, do a gentle harmony or however you want to guide it. But there's also the biofeedback too, because I think that's what makes it so powerful. It's not only what the group is hearing, but it's what we're all feeling too. And I think, like you're implying, there's these layers that can be felt and sensed and explored. And yeah, vocals are a wonderful way to go to a deeper level of connection and awareness as a human.
I wonder, like, this is the first time I'm thinking about it this way, but I've sang a lot in choir, so harmony was a thing that was very present, but it was very from a classical standpoint. Now coming into the more healing space, I wonder if harmonies or these different tones can interact with our chakras, and maybe the more of those tones there are, that's why we feel more activation in the body.
Yeah, that's a great thought. I've explored a lot of the whole topic of chakras, and I've kind of come to my own conclusion that they're a philosophy. So I like to describe chakras as a philosophy or a lens at how we can look through life, because I think we all have our own unique experience with them. But I definitely believe in this idea of energy centers in the body. And sometimes on my online courses, people will ask me like, oh, I didn't notice that note where you said, I might feel that I felt it more in my head instead of my chest. And it's kind of that reminder that, yeah, each one of us are having a subjective experience, and what might be pleasurable for you might be uncomfortable for someone else. But when it comes to sound, yeah, maybe if it's, let's say we're with a group of musicians and we're all have the training or the talent to sing in harmony together, and we can consciously say like, okay, you're going to do this particular harmony. Maybe it's in a major scale, and, each one can kind of say an intentional, like we're going to activate and give the group the chance to kind of tune into themselves. But also it's like this simultaneously felt experience where this is what we say we want to happen. Who knows what really is happening, or what are you really experiencing? But I think that would be a great topic to explore more further and see how could harmonies correlate to chakras and stimulating them in a specific or intentional manner.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. So can we talk a little bit about how you got into the healing aspect of music? What pulled you in that direction?
Well, like I had mentioned a little earlier about studying Kundalini yoga and learning about the mantras. And then when I was coming to the conclusions about AudioSoul Healing, I think what kind of guided me into those areas was this overall desire in life for something more, something deeper, which I guess we could just call spirituality. And it was around that time I was questioning a lot of my own self-beliefs about what was I taught growing up, and this idea of God coming from more of a Christian perspective versus this universal energy that, doesn't even have maybe a specific name, but it's something that connects all living things. And so it was a lot of this kind of maybe felt and research type of mentality where I wanted to absorb all these different texts and learn about, the chakras, and learn about yoga and learn about sound healing. So I was really immersing myself on my own self endeavor of trying to understand what is enlightenment. Can one become enlightened in this life? And what exactly does that look like? And what could that look like for me? And so going into sound just felt like a natural evolution of those type of questions and those type of thinking. And really, exploring other modalities like frequencies and binaural beats, mantras and chanting, using the voice, like we talked about, throat singing, and just any type of a sonic exploration that could be aligned with maybe a more intentional or spiritual or ceremonial purpose. And so it kind of was just like, like the kid in the candy store sampling all the different paths to see, what is this about? Interesting. And then at some point you find crossovers, and those kind of become your inner truth, where you find the different pieces that resonate inside. And that becomes maybe the uniqueness that guides us in life.
And how many instruments do you play?
Well, if you could see behind me here, I have maybe about 5 or 6 flutes. I have, to put it more specifically, I play guitar, any stringed instrument. I have ukuleles. I just got a charango, which is a stringed instrument from Chile. But stringed instruments and breath instruments such as flutes and the 𝗕𝗕𝗢𝗪𝗓 are some of my favorites. But I also love rhythms too, so I have different hand drums. I have a shamanic drum you can play with, a mallet, and an Irish drum, a bodhrán. So it all kind of feeds my musical spirit and my desire to produce music. And really, I don't think I've encountered an instrument that I couldn't play. And so anything that I've encountered on my journey that resonated with me, I decide, oh, you know what, I want to bring this into my collection. I do have one flute that a friend who came from either China or Japan has, like a traditional Asian flute where you play to the side. And I have found that one was a little challenging for me. But all in all, yeah, just as a kid, I was always like wrapping my fingers on things and singing little melodies and tunes. So it's just that natural musicality that was always in me that I find most joy through the voice, through guitar, and through flutes.
It's amazing. That's a lot of instruments to master.
Well, I guess it's subjective too in terms of mastery, but it's really the joy that comes from exploring them, but also that intentional sound making. Let's say I want to make a track that takes me into the Amazon jungle is what I envisioned inside of myself. And so now I have kind of these, like an artist, like these different palettes to choose from. And I said, I think this flute might sound nice here, and maybe this shaker, that drum. So it kind of just gives me as a creator also a chance to not get bored. And with doing the same mundane repetitious, it's like now I can, if I'm tired with guitar, I can go to the drums, or just this song will be all voice, or however I want to do it, or play piano. And so it's a joy to just express through sound and song.
And you produce also, which is amazing. Just doing all the things.
Yeah, I think I have at least 10 albums I've produced, and I have several others in the works. That's been over almost 20 years or so. So it seems like every few years, it's again like that catharsis of the inspiration that I've gathered and a desire then to share it, like on platforms like 𝗕𝗨𝗡𝗥𝗡𝗪, which has been a great platform to connect with the whole world. And I feel like that's the platform where I really felt welcomed into, wow, people from all over are really resonating with my music. And so it's been a good, encouraging journey to just keep sharing there, keep putting myself forward and sharing gifts in other dimensions as well, like the courses.
Yeah, what do you have, like 2 million plays or subscribers or follows on 𝗕𝗨𝗡𝗪?
I have almost 21,000 followers, almost 2 million plays of my content, and
crazy,
nearly 20,000 students in my courses as well.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Let's just take a moment for that. What are your courses like?
My first course was called The Power of Sound Healing with Voice, and it's kind of like an introductory journey to a lot of what we've talked about, all the different ways you can use your voice, but also in a very simple way, from vowel sounds to syllables, of how you can use syllables to make sound, to mantras and more intentional sound. At the end of the course is one of my favorite things. I have something called acroname. So it's a spin on an acronym where you make a mantra out of the letters of your own name. And so, for instance, Matthew, my words are music, art, technology, teaching, healing, energy, wisdom. And you can go deeper and make that into an actual affirmation that I use music, art, and technology to teach healing, energy, wisdom. And I remember the first time I wrote that, it had this real strong resonance inside, like, that's it. That's what my path is about. And so it's really rewarding to watch other students share their acronyms and kind of see how they're interpreting themselves and maybe expanding that sense of self, like, wow, I've had it my whole time. Like, my vibration is inherent in my name. And I think it gives us that also appreciation for the unique soul that we are.
That's wild. I can't wait to do that. And I'm going to tell you what I write.
You have some good letters, so you come up with some unique words in yours, I'm sure.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to think about it. The K is stumping me a little bit. I'm like, what's good? K. I'll figure it out. That's very cool. And so, what has been one of the most meaningful moments? It could be just something you've experienced or something with a person that was taking your course, like a transformation that you experienced or witnessed?
I think the first one that comes to mind on Insight Timer, maybe about a year or two ago, there was this older gentleman. I couldn't exactly say his age because I didn't know, but he was probably, based on his profile picture, anywhere between 70s and older. And listening to his like kind of self-discovery at that age was so enjoyable. And after every class, he would give me this big paragraph of like his little personal insights about, he's like, "Hello, Matthew, today was great. And I learned this." And it was almost like, talking with my grandfather or something. But it was awesome because I think a lot of times in life, we put people into boxes and we make assumptions about, oh yeah, when you're older, you think like this, and you can't teach an old dog a new trick, like they say. So it's very inspiring to see, some at any age still keeping an open mind and still learning things about themselves or trying things for the first time, saying like, wow, that was the first time I ever made a sound like that. How interesting, And he's like, this is something that I want to keep exploring with. So it's really like those little interactions like that, but that one in particular, I still go back to, is just the joy it brought me to know that I was interacting with someone somewhere on the planet that was having these profound experiences, and they were unique and authentic to them. And so that was one in particular that I always bring a smile to my face.
I love that. That's really nice. And it is really nice to see people at any age discovering themselves and knowing that it's never too late to explore.
Yeah, you just reminded me years ago when I was in New Mexico during my training. And one time I went to Santa Fe to just on my break to check out some of the art there. And I went to an artist, a museum who was having an art gallery opening. And I met him and he had a book and everything. I asked if he would sign it for me. I just really liked his art. And I think at that time I was in that really inquisitive spiritual mind, like I said, and I was asking questions like, what do you think the meaning of life is? And he said, it's better to seek less meaning and seek more mysteries. And that always resonated with me, kind of in this mindset that, moving through life, there's a lot of uncertainty, but instead of questioning it, dive into it, go into the uncertainty and like what's around that corner, that explorer kind of mindset, being curious. And so again, like another example of someone in their older years sharing kind of that wisdom through the journey is kind of what I think all of us are here to do, is to authentically share our subjective experience with others, to give encouragement and insights and permission sometimes to say, hey, check this out. I don't know, it resonated for me, but you might enjoy it too.
Yes. And so when I reached out to you, I asked you if you ran retreats, and you told me that you were feeling the call to get to deeper down that road. So what does the work that you do look like on retreat setting, or what is the vision that you see? What does it look like?
Yeah. So for me, I also have a strong affinity with nature and the healing medicine of nature. So it would definitely be a retreat where nature is a part of the experience. And to even expand it further, almost like a sacred site or a power place on earth, where part of the experience would be there to receive the medicine from the earth, or the medicine that nature is offering us. And I didn't get a chance to mention, but recently I finished my book. It's The Art of Energy Awareness, 12 Keys of Human Health and Wellness. And in the book, I talk about these different aspects of what truly brings us to healing. And so like the 4 elemental diet, I would use energy of earth, water, air, and fire, which could be live food, rainbow diet, fresh water, fresh air, and sunshine. And so already like these components of nature would be an aspect of the journey. And then having this whole space be a sacred experience. So that's important to me too. Sacred, this idea of ceremony and intention. And so it really be an opportunity. I also like the word multidimensional, and for individuals to tap into their multidimensionality and to see beyond maybe the self-imposed limits or the inherited limiting beliefs that we all have inside, and to see ourselves as something more, and to see our connection to the earth in a grander way, almost as this idea that we're stewards of the earth and that we're here to learn from, but also be nourished with and to grow and thrive with. And so it'd be this interweaving of a lot of these elements, but really helping us to reconnect and remember what it is to be a true, authentic human. And even in the book, I like to spell human like the color, H-U-E, human, and seeing that that's like the chakra self, right? It's the multi-dimensionality that we're not just the labels we give ourselves of man and woman or old or young, but we are beyond words. And there's that spirit and the soul that sometimes can only come through, like we said, in a song or in a voice. And it's giving individuals that safe space to explore that and beyond.
I love the depth of what you share. That was awesome. That sounds like an amazing retreat. I would definitely enjoy going to something like that. And I know that, lots of people watching this video are going to want to invite you on retreat. What kind of facilitators do you feel called to collaborate with?
Well, I guess in life, it's like we want to be around like hearts and like minds. So it would be kind of in that way of how can I support someone else's vision? I've never thrown my own retreat, but I know it could be a lot of work to set up all of the logistics and all the planning. So maybe to align with someone who has some experience already throwing retreats, but could use some assistance in some of the more ceremonial or guidance or teaching type of ways. That's where I would like to see my role more in particular as being the guide in aligning with people who are sharing that same vision of the sacredness of nature and the sacredness of the human experience and what can be evoked in that bond when we really allow ourselves to drop the masks and the stories and the limiting beliefs and maybe open up to a deeper perception of reality that is kind of like maybe foretold in this idea of the Aquarian age, like leaving old mindsets behind and stepping into, the new human or the new earth or in these different type of languaging that I get excited when I am in these dialogues.
Yeah, it's great. I do too. This feels very aligned with what I enjoy in life. So I appreciate this conversation. And where in the world are you? Did you say you were in Georgia?
Yeah, Savannah, Georgia. Yep, right on the coast. I'm about 20 minutes from the beach. And it's been a great home for maybe the past 15 years to, settle into a lot of these truths and have my own home studio where, almost daily I'm here creating and researching and planning the next content or just my own personal evolution of self.
But you're open to travel, doing retreats in other places.
Yeah, absolutely. Travel is one of my favorites. I've gone 2 retreats in Hawaii, in Spain. And there's that joy that comes again from the kind of that rite of passage where you're leaving your comfort zone and going into a different space or place. And of course, meeting people from all around the world is very enriching too, because then you get that extra dimension of different perspective and different language that can further fuel this understanding of this human reality.
Yes. And how long have you been doing?
Well, I'd say probably since 2015, when I mentioned I had come up with this idea of AudioSoul Healing, and I decided to dedicate my path to sacred sound and vibrational exploration. So I'd say almost a decade, but internally, it's probably been most of my life being a very sensitive and introspective person, just always wanting to explore the layers and understand the depths. So it's been a wonderful maturing and journey to see where I am now and look forward to see, what is there that I haven't explored and what can others teach me and what's in store for all of us as we continue to find the best paths.
So what can you teach us about the lessons that you've learned in this last decade?
I think, again, it all comes down to being authentic, being your true self and working in the ways that feel most authentic to you to show your authenticity to the world. And sometimes that takes, retreating within to oneself or retreating into your own space. And like they say, become a hermit and just like do the work that you need to do so that you can be better for yourself and be better for others. And I think it's also a journey of intuition and knowing. And when we can learn to listen to our inner guidance and listen to our inner intuition, that it can really help soothe a lot of those fears and worries we have about not knowing where we're supposed to be, or not knowing who we are or what we're supposed to do, or feeling lost or disconnected or uncertain about our path in life. I think a lot of those answers are found when we truly are authentic and truly vulnerable with ourselves, and find ways to express that are authentic and meaningful. So that way, create that vibration that we can kind of mirror to others. And it's sensed, like you said, when you're singing with others who can just feel it and know what to do next. When you're around someone who's truly embodying who they are, I think that is a medicine as well, because they're energetically given another permission to do the same.
And I had a question. It was there and it was gone, because I was like, but what he's saying, it's so great. So let me just be here, be present. And then it just ran off over there. I don't know where it went. Hopefully it comes back.
Got swept up.
Yeah. What was I going to ask? I'm just going to move. Oh, I was going to ask you. So did you have any challenges, or what did you find most challenging about finding your authenticity, or being in a place where you could finally express it?
Yeah, that was a big part of my journey, is feeling safe to express myself fully. And I still remember as a teenager being in my parents' basement right around the time when I was learning guitar. I was also practicing my voice. And I remember I'd be in the basement singing and having these visions of like being on stage, and inside I'd be telling myself, oh, if only I had a good voice. I had all these limiting beliefs. And I remember like family members would come downstairs and say, is that you singing? Wow, that sounds so good. But I had such like a different perspective of myself at the time that I wasn't ready to receive that fully. And so it was like all the shyness would come in, the limiting beliefs, and I would cloak myself and protect into that. And so over time, I've learned that, again, like I was saying, to sometimes going into that hermit mode is what you might need to find the confidence. And what they say, like, fake it till you make it, keep practicing that version of yourself you want to be. I really like that idea of shifting or jumping timelines, where there's a version of us already there in the multidimensional reality already existing. And as soon as we start behaving like them or making decisions like them, we'll naturally start to step into that reality. And so that's exciting for me to remember, because I believe we all have a sense of amnesia at times, and we forget our power, and we forget the gifts and what we have to offer to the world. And so when we can create that routine, I really like having a morning routine, so I can kind of ground that, and again, use that word embody these truths that I know are true for me, but then find practical ways that I can deliver that to others in my community and my family and loved ones.
Wow. Oh, you're amazing. I really enjoyed listening to you speak. It shows that you've done a lot of internal work, just a lot of exploration, a lot of curiosity. It shows in the way that you speak, and it inspires me. It makes me curious, and I want to just dive deeper into these things myself. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of this.
Yeah. Well, thanks for, again, being the catalyst and being here to reflect the wisdom and extract it in the conversation. These are the things I love talking about. I was chatting with my friend Alex the other day, because he's on a similar level as these topics too. And I says, man, it's so refreshing when we get to talk about, this level of life in the spiritual sense. And I says, because not everyone is ready to have these conversations. So when I get a chance to connect with others who are on that wavelength, yeah, it's nourishing, because again, it's feeling that soul's need to be seen and to share and to explore, like, the wisdoms that you have and that others have as we come into these healing spaces and connect with the amazing technologies of the internet around the world. You're saying like, wow, it's so great. There are others out there who are doing similar work, and what can we all learn from each other? It's just really inspiring.
Yeah, so many. I mean, that's one of the things when you said to be a hermit. I usually have been, for most of my life, a social butterfly. Always with people, always going to events. I was born in Miami, so events is like a thing. There's always
Anonymous, yeah.
something to do, somewhere to go, people to see, all that stuff. And the last few years, I've been really living like a hermit. It's just my husband and I, the dog, the cat, and it's amazing. It's amazing the things that you can accomplish and the way you can really get to know yourself and see yourself when you pull yourself away from the rest of it, where the only voice that's there is yours and you're met face to face with it. It's like, okay, this is not person A, B, or C, or this is not coming from any external source. These are things that are here with me. And then you have that space and that time, because you're not going anywhere, to actually work on them and then get creative in these ways that you couldn't if you were going out. And I don't know where this is coming from, but I guess somebody needs to hear it or I need to say it. But I never gave myself this space before. And now that I have, I realize how much power there is in being the hermit, at least for a period of time. Like, there's this other musician, I don't know if you know him. I think it's called Garth Stevenson. He's a cellist.
I think I've heard that name, yeah.
And so one of the albums he created, he just disappeared into a cabin in the mountains for, I don't know, 8 months or something like that, from what I was reading. And then he came out with this album. Magic like that happens.
Yeah, I joke with my friends and family. It says, oh man, I think I'm ready to go into that creative hermit mode again. And I could, I've done that version of it up in the cabin creating. So it's an instinct, I think, that some of us hear more strongly. But even in my book, one of my hypotheses is that even though we all resonate with, oh, I'm extroverted, I'm introverted, I feel like we undulate through those phases through our life. And it's healthy and normal to honor what phase and what chapter or season that we want to be expressing ourselves in. And like any great artist and creator, sometimes you have to go deep within into your silence and your sacred space to listen, like you said, to meditate and to do the work so that you can hear the message or get real clear on what it is you're trying to say. But then over time, the natural inclination is you want to share that with each other. And so that's to the marketplace or to the art gallery or to the stage. So it's kind of like this dance, or like the flow of the ocean, the waves come in and the waves come out. I feel like it's a beautiful metaphor for just as humans, how we are naturally always able to express ourselves.
Yes, like the breath.
And the breath, yeah, exactly.
Okay. I'm looking to see if there's anything else here that I just need to ask you. I think we've gone over most of it. We haven't talked about immersive experiences. Multi-sensory experiences to enhance healing.
Yeah, what would you like to know? Because I could talk a lot about that too.
Well, I was reading that you like to create these, that you use various instruments and vocal techniques to create these immersive experiences. So maybe like can you give us an example of what that would look like?
Sure. So recently, in the last several years in Savannah, I've gotten to work with the Cultural Arts Center that we have here. And they have very vast spaces and theaters that have real tall ceilings and big hardwood floors, where it's kind of like a blank space, a black box for you to do whatever you want. And so whenever I have any type of experience, especially in the realms of healing or with sound, I like to explore the multi-sensory aspects of that to take people deeper into that journey. I think ideally what I'm trying to create is like kind of like what the gift of nature offers you. And that's why I think retreats have kind of been this next stepping stone, is like, oh, a lot of what I'm trying to do, maybe nature can provide with like a beautiful backdrop. But if you're in like a theater, for instance, or a studio space where you can use projection and lighting, maybe to create like this immersive projection around the participants so they feel like they're not just in a room now, they're actually having an experience, almost like if you go to a museum and they have those big immersive projections where you feel like you're in a 360 experience. I've attempted to create versions of those and like different scenes that change based on the music. I'm doing a performance, and so each section of the sound healing will maybe have a different backdrop based that's supporting the music. And of course, too, using scents like Palo Santo or different incenses to kind of create that visceral sensory experience. Because I think a lot of our journey in life and journey to sense is supported by our senses, of course. So to kind of give people a chance to go into this immersive experience, get out of the mind, get out of the chatter and the stories, and go more again into that embodiment and being present, being here now, and being curious, like, what is all this? And what am I feeling? And what is it triggering in me? What am I remembering? And yeah, I think there's a lot to explore with those words of immersive and multisensory.
Yeah. They sound fun too. Immersive,
Yeah.
multisensory.
Yeah.
I think that's really important work. It's easy to do it at a retreat because, like you said, nature just enables that kind of environment. But there is like this bridge. I think what you're doing is that bridge, because not everybody, like you said, is ready to go that deep, is ready to go on a retreat, especially maybe a 3 to 5 day retreat where they're going away and they're going to be staying with a bunch of people that they don't know. Like there's sometimes fear around that. Not everyone is as ready to jump into that, but creating something like this in the city where they can get a taste of, like you said, what's that? What's this? What are these feelings? And then from that space, they can start to ask themselves the questions and slowly open up and get to that place where they're like, maybe I want to go on a retreat and dive a little deeper into these things.
Yeah, that's a great word for it. I like the idea of a bridge and that metaphor as a bridge. And a lot of times I feel like that's kind of what I'm here to do. Like they say, you can open the door for someone, but they have to be the one to walk through. Just in my life, I feel that natural inclination to want to share with others and to say, oh, let me show you this cool thing I discovered. And a lot of times they'll say, cool, not for me. Or like you said, they're not ready for it. And so I've had to learn that over time that, all right, this is something I can share with others, but just like you said, maybe they're not ready to make the full commitment, but they're curious, they want to peek. And so, something local and something that's more accessible is a good way to create that bridge and still give people a chance to just to see it, to experience it, to feel it. And then the natural inclinations and feelings can develop further from there, perhaps.
Yeah. Maybe a good connection would be with Serena. I think her video just launched or went live today on the channel. She's in New York and she creates immersive experiences. And she had a play in New York that was it was called Outside In. And she talks about it in the video, but there's alignment there. So maybe there's something to be created there. I'm just putting it out into the ether.
Okay, cool.
For
I'll
it
have
to
to
be
check.
caught.
Yeah, check the video out.
Yeah. Okay, so I have one last question. We've kind of gone through all of it. And this last question is, what message would you like to put out to the retreat community? Or what would you like people to be aware of?
Are you talking about like people who are offering retreats or people who are attending a retreat or all the above?
All the above.
I guess we'll just use the word retreat and community together as kind of a good foundation of, I think a retreat can be a really powerful and needed experience. What I've also noticed about life is this lack of, I think I used the phrase earlier, rite of passage, especially in America, being such a melting pot. There's not a lot of like strong cultural foundation for a lot of people to root into. And sometimes I think I know people are seeking through all that they do, like in sports and, with multimedia and entertainment, like watching a show, it's our natural inclination to want to be around others, to want to share with others, and to want to talk about things that are meaningful to us. But I think there's been a lot of substitutes that have come up in our modern world that can almost be like distractions for the entertainment purpose. But a retreat can be a way to get to the heart, like you said, when you can get quiet, when you can listen to your true soul's desires, and you can start figuring out what is it really that I'm looking for in life, and what am I being called and guided to do, and to connect with other people in a space that's a safe space to be vulnerable and authentic. I believe that's the heart and intention of what all treats are for, is to gather like minds and like souls together so that we can find that sense of community and find that inner guidance and just get encouragement sometimes, or see other ways that we might have been curious about but didn't quite know what the next step would be. I found from my past experience with the treats, it's been all of that, where it's a multi-dimensional opening for me to explore my intuition and my instinct about what's next in life or what could be next. And to have that community there is a wonderful affirmation of, wow, I'm not alone on this journey. And it's kind of that spice of life, that zest when you're around other people who have that passion, and it can help evoke your passion. So yeah, go to a retreat, find elements of yourself that you've been curious about, and find your voice, and look forward to the journey of growth and discovering something new about yourself and others in the world.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that message.
Yeah.
Thank you for being
Welcome.
here and chatting with us, chatting with me, because there ain't nobody here right now. It's just me.
You and Ganesha on your couch.
And the Ganesha, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. Thanks again for inviting me. I had an awesome time, and it's inspiring to just chat about these topics. As you see, we've probably gone on for an hour at least. So just a lot of great content. Krystal, it's been great.